It is time for this board to pass a resolution calling for no confidence or the resignation of the sheriff. Thank you.
I strongly urge this board to take whatever corrective action is necessary to stop the sheriff from continuing to squander our valuable resources in this time of need, and to stop making a mockery of the board and the good citizens of Orange County. Thank you.
I would suggest that the Board of Supervisors admit that they made a mistake appointing Sheriff Hutchins. This could be accomplished by a vote of no confidence. Thank you.
I'm a registered Democrat, an activist, and I will work to get the sheriff's opponent in office if she continues down this dangerous path of disarming Orange County. Thank you.
The board made a mistake, and that's okay, but it's time. It's time to do something now. And I think it would be in order for you to have a vote of no confidence or ask the sheriff to resign, which you wouldn't anyway, but at least that you can distance yourself from her politics.
Citizens of Orange County, California are enraged at their sheriff for dramatically reducing the number of concealed carry weapon permits. They argue they have a right, a Second Amendment right, to bear arms.
Basically, all of us in this room, all of us in this state, and all of us in this country have the right to own and bear arms. And I underline bear arms, okay? Firearm doesn't do you much good if it's locked in the trunk of your car or in a gun safe in your basement, okay? So keep that in mind when we talk about the Second Amendment.
I've heard discussions today about referring to the rights of the sheriff to do whatever. Sheriff has no rights over me. The sheriff is granted authority over me, over us, to do her job per the law. Sheriff cannot create the law. The sheriff follows the law.
The Orange County Board of Supervisors asked the recently appointed Sheriff Hutchins to explain her change in policy.
In July of last year, I ordered a review of all existing concealed weapons permits, specifically looking at the issue of good cause. I implemented a new policy, and that was adopted in September of last year. The main issue we have been discussing for the last several months is the issue of good cause. There are some who have alleged that this is a Second Amendment issue. I would disagree. This does not impact an individual's right to have a firearm in their home or their place of business. The fact is, there is a law in the state of California prohibiting the carrying of a concealed weapon. I can't change that. That exists. There's a section that gives the sheriff or police chief of a jurisdiction the ability to issue a license as an exception to that law. That law specifically states that the person must have good cause. I believe that I have taken a common sense approach to good cause. That is, you must demonstrate that you are at some greater risk than anyone else in the population, in the general population.
But the citizens disagreed with good cause being predicated upon financial value, as stated by Ed Worley from the National Rifle Association.
The other thing is, if you look at the good cause issuance, it says in the Orange County website, an occupation requires frequent transportations of large sums of money or other valuables when alternative protection is not allowed. Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Supervisors, does that mean I have to be rich and well endowed with lots of resources and money and everything to be able to get a concealed carry permit? Because let me tell you something. The most important thing that I have in my life, the most important thing that's most cherished by me, is my family. When I transport my family to and from wherever I'm going, am I supposed to hire a security guard? The most important thing we're seeing here is
Mr. Worley,
very quickly, ma'am, yeah. I'll finish up, thank you.
If you could.
Is that the policy here is telling you that the most important thing in a person's life is your physical possessions, and it's not. The most important thing in my life is my family, and my ability to protect my family shouldn't be predicated upon an arbitrary and capricious issuance of permits.
Third thing is good cause is the desire to protect yourself or your family away from your home. What better cause could there be? If you're going to say you don't have good cause until there's a great risk to your well-being or your family's, it's too late. That's not the time to fill out the paperwork and wait for a response.
No matter whether your occupation is a jeweler, a lawyer, a doctor, the underlying reason for our CCW is for personal protection. This is recognized by many other county sheriffs who follow the law.
This gentleman brings up a good point. How is it that other sheriffs around California are issuing CCW permits to people with much less challenging good cause declarations?
Over 50% of California sheriffs accept self-defense as good cause in their counties. Does the sheriff feel that these sheriffs are not following the law?
It has become increasingly apparent from news reports that the sheriff has made up her mind on the course of action she plans for her policy changes on CCWs. Even though it is clear that she is not just following the law, she is interpreting the law to suit her own agenda. After a lengthy debate and public testimony from several law professors, it is obvious that the law is broad with respect to CCW issuance and that many law-abiding sheriffs in the state of California have a far different policy on issuing CCWs, a policy that allows ordinary citizens to request a CCW for personal protection as long as they meet the background and training requirements.
But Sheriff Hutchins stood her ground.
I know a gentleman from the NRA brought up an example of good cause, someone who carries money or jewelry, and I would ask you to again look at the policy that's in front of you, and on the first page, there are several bullets, and it goes over to the second page, and I won't bore you with reading all of that, and I won't take up any more time, but I would draw your attention to the note at the bottom. These examples are not intended to be all-inclusive. They are provided merely for your reference. Also, state and local laws do not prohibit an adult from having a concealed weapon in their home or place of business. A couple of the speakers brought up the fact that the sheriff cannot make the law, and that's true, and I think that's been my point. I don't make the law, but I am required to enforce the law, and I am required to abide by the law. And I understand that this is a very passionate issue for a number of people, and believe me, I appreciate that. But I have to keep reminding there is a law in the state of California. If that law did not exist, then anybody with good moral character and a background check, I'd be happy to give them a CCW. But that is not the law in the state of California. I have no control over this. There was an issue, several of the speakers talked about states that are shall-issue states. This is not a shall-issue state. Again, that is not within my control. That is not appropriate for me to try and find a way around what the existing law is. It doesn't matter whether I agree with that law, and on quite the contrary, I think that I need to enforce the laws whether I agree with them or not. I think that is the requirement and the responsibility of a law enforcement officer. That's what I ask my deputies to do every day, and I think that that's what they expect of me, and I believe that's what the people in this county expect of me.
Bill Hunt is a former Orange County Sheriff Lieutenant and is running as a candidate to replace Sheriff Hutchins in 2010. Full Disclosure interviewed him to discover his position on issuing concealed carry permits. We asked him if he thought Sheriff Hutchins' policy of restricting CCWs was making Orange County safer.
Well, of course it's not making it safer. I mean, you know, you look at the gun control advocates and they try to use fear as a weapon. You know, for that issue. But the reality is, the data's in. I mean, there's a gentleman named John Lott who did a study, and he put it in a book called More Guns, Less Crime, and he shows that the data, statistically, in the United States, in states and counties that have shall-issue positions, crime goes down. Ultimately, what business is the sheriff in? Crime reduction. So from an operational standpoint, there is absolutely no reason not to support and defend the constitutional right of law-abiding citizens to be able to carry weapons.
If the statistical evidence is so overwhelming, then why are so many police chiefs and sheriffs against the policy of arming citizens? We ask him.
Well, it doesn't make sense, but obviously it's a fundamental belief and value for her. I believe if she had to run for office, as she does this time, on that value, on that policy, on that belief, that the people of Orange County are going to reject her for it. And that's part of the reason why it's so important to have an election to fill that position. Because until somebody's been vetted, until we know what their background is, We know what their values are. We know that they can go out and build support in the community, that they can build support in the organization, that they can show that they can do the leadership things that are going to be required for such a high-profile, politically charged office, then you're going to have problems down the road, and that's what's happening here. So, you know, Sandra Hutchens is going to have to go out and defend those policies.
The citizens who attended the board meeting agreed with Mr. Hunt. They questioned the board's selection of appointing Sandra Hutchens as sheriff.
Instead of taking away concealed carry permits, I'm asking the sheriff to issue permits to all law-abiding citizens who apply and who pass a background check and some other tests, as other states have done. The sheriff needs to realize that law-abiding citizens who are pro-gun are not the enemy of law enforcement.
At every turn, the sheriff has demonstrated she is not right for Orange County.
There's a horrible situation going on here. The supervisors voted to accept this sheriff out of Los Angeles County, knowing what's going on in Los Angeles County. And I think that everyone here needs to think about what was the thought behind that. Why would you bring someone from Los Angeles County here with that mindset?
What vetting was done in appointing her that allowed this important policy to be ignored or given inadequate attention? How do we end up with an appointed sheriff that is so out of step with the interests of the community she has been appointed to serve?
We asked Mr. Hunt if he were elected sheriff, what he would accept as a good cause requirement.
In the state of California, there's a good cause requirement, and that's what sheriffs like Sandra Hutchens try to hide behind to defend what I think is an undefensible and unconstitutional position. But the Supreme Court has just ruled that not only does the Second Amendment apply to a well-regulated militia, but it also applies to us as individuals, and not just in the home, but also as individuals to protect ourselves for self-defense. Now, if we have one person, elected or otherwise, who is preventing us from the means to exercise that right, then what good is the right? It's no good at all. So I think philosophically, the sheriff has sworn an oath to support and defend the Constitution. The Supreme Court has made it, has qualified the issue and said we do have that right. I think the data shows that in states where we do allow law-abiding American citizens to exercise the right to self-defense, crime goes down. I cannot find a legitimate reason not to take the policy that I'm taking on the Second Amendment.
We challenged him. Would he make Orange County a shall-issue county?
I'm going to make Orange County a shall-issue county, or at least a shall-issue as the law permits here in the state of California. And let me explain to you how I arrived at that. And I talked about the Supreme Court earlier. The Supreme Court, you know, the country is moving in the right direction on CCWs, but somehow we're here in the state of California where this holdout, where I think for political reasons, where sheriffs have the ability, because they are the final authority on the policy in their county, they can control what? Political contributions with that. And I think it's unfortunate. I think we need to, what my policy will be, is if you're a law-abiding citizen, you pass the background check, you take the training, you pay your fees, then I'm going to issue you the weapon.
We want to know what you, the viewers, think. Please respond to our survey and leave your comments below. Number 1, do you think that our streets and communities are safer if people are legally carrying concealed weapons? Yes or no? Number 2, do you think that self-protection is an adequate requirement to warrant the issuance of a concealed carry permit? Yes or no? And number 3, do you agree that the top law enforcement officers in your county should be elected and not appointed? Yes or no? Please be sure to leave your comments below. For almost a year, Full Disclosure has been requesting an interview with Sheriff Hutchins to discuss this and other issues facing Orange County. We are hopeful that she will grant our request soon. In the meantime, we will be airing our recent full interview of Mr. Hunt in the near future. I'm Leslie Dutton. Thank you.